You have found Authentic Business Adventures, the business program that brings you the struggles, stories, and triumphant successes of business owners across the land. We are coming to you from the Sun Prairie Community Radio Studios, underwritten by Bank of Sun Prairie. My name is James Kateman, business coach and author of the Bold Business Book, along with my host, Mason Tikkanen, who happens to be out today. Today we are welcoming/preparing to grill Bill Atkinson of Bill's Earth Services. Bill, how you doing today?
Fabulous. And yourself?
I'm doing tip-top here. So we are joining you guys at another grizzly cold winter day in lovely Wisconsin. So, Bill, what's your company name?
Bill's Earth Services.
Bill's Earth Services. Okay, Bill. So that's kind of vague, right? Because Earth Services, that could be all kinds of stuff. So tell me what you do there.
So we do landscape, hardscape, and excavation. And there's just other areas we're thinking about for the future.
Okay.
So that's the reason for the vague name.
That's just, awesome. Yeah, vague is not necessarily bad.
Definitely not.
Vague is more, you got room for growth there in that regard.
Definitely.
So that's awesome. So tell me, how long have you had your business?
It'll be going on 2 years in April.
Oh, nice. Well, almost congrats then.
Thank you.
What have been some of the biggest challenges? That's a long list. How long do we have?
Yeah. Well, I'd say financials is one of them.
Sure.
Just it's a learning road. You know, you try different things in different areas and see if they work.
Sure.
And then if that doesn't work, you know, you discontinue that one and you bring on another area of service that may produce more income for you.
Sure.
So that you can hire on employees in the future and just, continue to grow.
Right. So test and measure, and
Definitely.
tweak as you see fit and keep moving until success just build on success, right?
Correct.
Learn from failures, which are inevitable.
Yes.
At least if you're innovating and doing it right.
Yes.
And then build on that, right?
Correct.
Sounds simple enough. And I imagine Earth Services can be fairly capital intensive.
Yeah, it can.
Unless you're just buying a shovel, but I imagine that there's more to it than that.
Yeah, I mean, it goes from physical labor to heavy equipment.
Sure.
So, you can be digging a post hole with a hand digger, or you can, hook one on a bobcat. And
Bobcat sounds way more fun.
Definitely.
At least if you're going to repeat it for any length of time. So have you had or do you have employees?
Currently, no. I had a brief stint this summer.
Okay.
Where I had 2 employees working with me.
Gotcha.
But that didn't work out, but that's okay. It was a great learning experience for me. And I'm looking forward to taking on more.
Awesome. So I love hearing about stories with employees. So this is a safe place, right? It's you, me, perhaps the rest of the world. So would you like to share a story about your employees or employee or a fun one? Call it the one that you learned the most from.
I guess we were out mowing and I just I was the kind of person that, just show them once and let them go.
Sure.
And I did that. And I was watching one guy mow, and I came back to the other guy who was trimming, and he had accidentally trimmed down to the dirt.
Oh, no. Okay.
So, you had a nice big line outlining the out border of the...
Sure. Okay.
So, oh, well. I mean, I
sure
kind of shrugged it off, and...
So was there...
there's not much you could do about it, really.
Right, but there was a point of education with that gentleman then.
Right, then just my thought was, well, I should spend more time with that person and try and improve their skills just to show them that, this is how it's supposed to be done, and let's try and avoid this if possible.
Sure. And so was he open to that?
Kind of. I mean...
It's kind of open education, okay.
It was a struggle for me because I guess at that time, I wasn't as strong in my leadership role.
Sure.
And, that's obviously a continuous thing. You're always learning.
Oh, yeah. Never stop learning.
Definitely not. But at that point in time, I think I was a little more, I don't want to say timid, but it was new for me. So I was, unsure how to handle the situation without blowing up.
So you raise a huge point there, right? Because in a moment like that, I can tell you that in my experience with employees, there are certain times when you're thinking to yourself, how can one person be so dumb, right? How can they make decisions like this that are just so beyond the scope of logic that they even remember to exhale? Right. But realistically, with their education, their experience, their upbringing, all that they've seen in the world, if I was in their position, I probably would have made the same mistake, right?
Right.
And vice versa, if they would have had my upbringing, my experience, my education, they may know better, right?
Yeah.
But they didn't, right? And it's tough sometimes to remember that, oh, yeah, this person they're going down their own road, writing their own story kind of thing, whether they are conscious or aware of it or not. And so their experiences sometimes lead to making mistakes.
Correct.
That from a point of view of the boss or the leader, the manager, whatever you want to call yourself, you're like, oh my gosh, you're an idiot. And from their point of view, you're like, why you call me an idiot? And what's interesting to note, and you can correct me if I'm wrong here or amplify it as well, sometimes even when you're thinking that the person is an idiot, yet you don't say it, they can feel that you are believing that they are an idiot. Like
Definitely.
you believe it with such intensity that they are more than aware that you were thinking. You might as well just call them an idiot, which I would not advise from management point of view, right?
Yeah, definitely not
It's probably
in my opinion, a good
HR nightmare.
Good way to handle it.
Sure. So in this instance, when the guy trimmed down to the dirt, right, which most people I would assume know that's not a good thing to do unless you're using the trimmer to kill weeds.
Right.
That's how I roll, but that's why I'm not in lawn care. Why are there these holes? So tell me, what did you do in that instance?
I mean, there wasn't really much to do.
Sure.
I just
did
told
you just
them
walk away steaming, or did you punch him in the neck? Or?
No, I basically found a spot that wasn't trimmed or whatever.
Sure.
And just walked over there and said, okay, this is how we got to do it in order
Sure.
to make sure this doesn't happen continuously.
Okay.
And I showed them, and they say okay.
Sure.
And you go on to the next. And
so, okay, let's, without oversimplifying, right? Because you said he says okay, but most of the time when people are corrected, generally speaking, nobody likes to be corrected, right? Because they're like, clearly I did this wrong, and now that I see that I did it wrong, I didn't just do it a little wrong. I did something stupid.
Right.
All right. So now it's essentially being pointed out to me that I did a stupid action, and sometimes people don't separate doing a stupid action from actually being a stupid person.
Right.
Right. And so did you run into that issue, or were they just accepting of it and they learned and moved on?
No. It was throughout the whole time with me. It was a struggle to communicate with them.
Okay.
I don't know. I just feel like they felt like they knew everything.
Gotcha. Okay. A lot of people do.
They didn't want to listen.
Sure.
And, I guess at the point when they quit, I was ready to get rid of them.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, they made it easier for you. Okay.
It did.
All right.
But.
And all the employees that you had were essentially rolling down that road?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they
Gotcha.
just, it wasn't what I was looking for, but I guess in my opinion, it was the level I was at personally.
Sure.
I feel like you attract things to yourself that, you're on the level with.
Sure.
And that's the way it is.
That's interesting you say that. Sure.
If
So
you want better, you got to raise yourself to a higher level and
Right.
become better.
raise your standards. I like it. I love it. So it's interesting you say that, because I have the saying that no one gets a problem that they cannot solve, right?
Correct.
No one is presented with any problem that they cannot solve, right? Whether they do or don't solve it, that's a completely different issue. But I believe that you're not presented with a problem that you cannot solve.
Correct.
So in the case of this, dealing with these employees, right? That was pure education for you.
Right.
You could argue expensive, and hopefully the customer's still with you. I don't know. But there's a challenge that was presented there.
Mm-hmm.
That, let's just say that you hire these employees and they do the job exactly how you expected it to be, right? What is the likelihood that would happen?
That's a good question. I mean, I feel like you just gotta give somebody a chance and
Sure.
See what their level is of skill, and
Sure.
if you can help them along, great. If
Right.
not, I mean, then they're gonna have to move on.
Mm-hmm.
It's just the way the world works, I feel. I
Right.
mean, you got to know what your skill level is, or be willing to figure it out on your own,
Sure.
if possible.
So if you were to label, let's say, 3 things that you learned about that in regards to leadership, in regards to just dealing with those 2 employees, what would be the top 3 things? Knowing that there's already a long list of things that you learned.
Well, keep a cool head at all times.
Okay. Great idea.
Just,
yep.
You don't want to put that bad energy out there and have them feel that.
Sure.
Time is valuable.
Okay. All right. So time spent educating is
Very
there's an
valuable.
opportunity cost there.
Right.
Sure.
I feel like if you have to educate more than maybe 2 or 3 times, then
right.
Maybe it's time for them to move on.
Sure. Yep.
The third.
Well, tell us about hiring. Was it easy to find people?
Actually, it was hired through a friend, but it's just I put it out there and
sure,
people offered up help, and I was, I guess at that point I was willing to take anything on.
Sure.
For
Okay.
help.
Sure.
I was trying to have somebody do the mowing while I was doing other work.
Sure.
Just to try and start actually having it be a business. But
oh, gotcha. Okay. So you raised an interesting point. Now this is through a friend. So did you know these people when you hired them?
No, I didn't.
But the friend knew them.
Yes.
Okay. So now the friend knows these people and says, "Hey, Bill, I got these people. They're great. They can fog a mirror, and I think they can hold a weed whacker." So you're like, "Great. That's exactly what I'm looking for. Come on over." They mess up, and you're like, "Hey, man, this ain't working out." Or they're like, "Hey, man, it's not working out," and they move along. Now you still have to be in touch with that friend, right? And was there any bad blood from that?
No. They were a bit shocked, actually.
Okay. Shocked at you or shocked at their friends?
Shocked at the employees.
Their employees, okay. Or your employees, okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
But, it's all, I just take it all as a learning experience. And,
sure.
I never hope there's hard feelings with people if,
right.
if they're referring somebody to me, but
sure.
I mean, that's the name of the game, in my opinion.
Right. So chalk it up to experience and move along.
Definitely.
Gotcha. Cool. So what have been some other issues that you've had to deal with in regards to starting your business?
In the very beginning, finding work.
Okay.
That was a scary thing for me in the beginning.
Okay.
You just got to get out there, start cold calling, and
sure,
definitely keep going.
Right.
The tough thing for me in the beginning was to have consistent work.
Okay.
I felt I did pretty good in the beginning,
mm-hmm.
but I probably could have done better if I had more capital to...
Better in regards to business as a whole, better in marketing?
I guess in all areas,
okay.
Better to keep a steady flow of work coming in.
Sure.
Basically.
Sure.
Yeah. In all of them, yeah.
Right.
More marketing, more, yeah.
Okay. We're starting at rung 0.
Right.
So realistically, the only way to go is up.
Yep.
And hindsight being 20/20, you can always say, "Oh, I coulda, shoulda, woulda," right?
Yeah.
But regardless of that, all that's doing is educating you about what you should do in the future.
Correct.
Does that make sense? So, I guess I always look at any business, right? I've started a couple businesses myself, and it's been a challenge because you have this dream in your head,
right?
That I'm going to start the business on Monday. By Tuesday, I'll be full. By Wednesday, I'll hire 5 employees. By Thursday, I'll be up to 100.
Right.
And by Friday, I'll be on a beach somewhere owning an island while business is bringing me residual income, right? It'll take about a week. Yeah. And my biggest thing is I'll probably have to come up with an email address or something. People have this grand vision that when it's grand vision that's not necessarily written down on paper and hasn't been gone through,
right?
That they end up not realizing that maybe this is the way that I have it outlined isn't realistic, right?
Right.
Because that's one of the challenges that we as business owners have, right?
Correct.
To start a business alone, you have to have some form of an ego, because you have to believe that either you're going to do it better than someone else,
correct,
whatever it is, right?
Yep.
Mowing lawn, shoveling snow, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or that you can do it cheaper, or that there's an improvement of some kind, or that you're innovating to the point where you believe that you don't have competition, right?
Correct.
So whatever it is, you have to have some form of an ego that believes that you're better than someone in some regard.
Right.
So when you introduce that, then you don't want to be like, well, I'm going to fail in these ways, right? Because that's going completely against your ego. So it's interesting that as a business owner, you just have to push. And then sometimes a rabbit hole that you can run into is to look back and say, oh, look at all the things that I did wrong. If only I would have, whatever. You can just fill in the blank with endless stuff, right?
Right.
But everybody's messed up. Literally everybody. So
definitely.
That's part of the part that we love here is learning about the stories that people have, right? Employee stories are fantastic because you can learn so much about mistakes there.
There's just, the learning is endless.
Sure. So tell us about some other challenges that you've had. In starting your business. Like if someone were to tell you, let's just say you're going to a restaurant, you got a fortune cookie.
Okay.
And that fortune cookie has a fortune on it.
Mm-hmm.
And we're talking, it's you're almost a year and a half into it. So let's just say a year ago, right? So you're closer to 6 months into it. What do you wish that fortune cookie said to tell you so that you could have made some different decisions?
Probably just to take a step in this direction rather than, another direction. Like take a step more into what I'm doing next year, excavation.
Okay, gotcha.
Versus, taking a step sideways into mowing.
Gotcha. Okay.
Because I guess I've learned that, in doing that, I was taking a step away from my Bobcat stuff.
Sure.
So,
sure.
You're going two different directions, where if I were to take on excavation last year, then
Sure.
I would have been kind of combining,
Gotcha.
doing
Okay.
excavation and Bobcat work. And in that sense,
Sure.
it would have probably been an easier year.
Okay. So something in regards to focus or something of that nature.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay.
I think I was just gung-ho about, adding another division in the company.
Okay.
Which I guess I kind of, in that sense, wish I would have kind of sat down and thought about it first.
Sure.
But I think at that point I was just, excited and ready to go do something on top of that. And I had the grand picture of, finding people to mow, and then I'd get out in the Bobcat and do what I do. And
sure.
Everything would be great. But at that point it's like, well,
right. When it's all in your head, everything is perfect, right?
Oh, definitely.
When you start putting it on paper or actually experience it, hopefully you put it on paper first to learn, but when you start experiencing it, then it doesn't always work out as it planned in your head, right?
Correct.
So that's awesome. So you've learned from that.
Definitely.
So now your idea is more focused on earth moving, essentially. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay. Can you tell us a bit about that?
So next year I'm going to be getting more into the excavation, which will be digging for basements, additions, crawl spaces, and
okay.
I guess just any other project that, is involved with moving
Gotcha.
dirt in one way or another.
Okay.
Around a home or on a new home project.
Sure. So that sounds like hard work. Is that safe to say?
Yeah.
Okay. Dirt being heavy and dirty and all.
Right. I guess you have to be willing to get dirty.
Sure.
To do the job.
Okay.
It's probably 12-hour days.
Okay.
When the sun's up and
okay.
you're coming home when the sun is down.
Sure. Okay. So make hay when the sun shines kind of thing.
Correct.
Okay. So days like today where it's negative, 6 or 20, I don't know. It could be negative 30 for all I know. It's freaking cold. So it's probably harder to move dirt when it's frozen, right?
Yeah, at this point, you're probably better off just staying home. It's harder on the equipment.
Okay.
When it's this cold, starting
sure.
them up, and you got hydraulics and all that kind of stuff that have to work through, warming up. And
okay.
When it's this cold, then you're better off just letting it sit and
gotcha.
Wait for a warmer day in the positives.
All right. Nice. So you, I imagine there's certain people that I meet that are more, I don't want to distinguish necessarily between white collar and blue collar, one being better than the other one.
Sure.
But there's certain, like I was a mechanic,
mm-hmm.
and there's still, even with the business coaching that I do, there's a challenge, or there's a missing element that I have that I don't get to work with my hands as much as I used to. And I have to find ways to fill that, right?
Correct.
Where you, moving dirt and all this kind of stuff, there's also the administrative side that has to be taken care of with your business as well.
Yep.
So how do you feel about working with your hands? And then if you enjoy that more, which I'm assuming that you do.
I do.
So does that mean that some of the administrative stuff gets delayed a little bit more than it should?
Yeah.
Okay.
There's times where I find myself probably 2 days in the office doing, getting stuff in order.
Sure.
Putting expenses on spreadsheets. And,
sure.
Keeping stuff in order.
Yep.
I know office work is part of it, so you gotta do it.
Right. It's awesome talking with people that are doing some physical service of some kind, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's painting or building, moving dirt, massage, whatever, is because they're doing, like they created that business because there's a love of that industry or that activity, right?
Correct.
However it is. Or they believe that they can make stupid money in that industry, so they just run with that, right?
Right.
But generally speaking, they understand that they enjoy working with their hands and they have this skill set, right?
Yep.
But then I see the administrative portion falls off a little bit.
Oh, definitely.
And I even had that with my, I had a printer repair company years ago.
Okay.
And when I would get the phone call from a customer that says, hey, we never received an invoice for the work that you did a month ago. We'd like to pay that. I remember getting that phone call for the first time thinking, okay, they just called me asking if they could pay me, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's a terrible phone call to get because I should have been the one asking them for money proactively. But
right.
I got so far behind my paperwork because I got so entrenched in the day-to-day,
mm-hmm.
working with my hands and taking care of the customer outside of actually getting paid.
Uh-huh.
which can be a huge downfall.
Right.
Because it turns out if you don't get paid, it's very tough to stay in business.
Yeah, kind of.
Very challenging. So it's always interesting to talk with other service business owners. One, I guess to fulfill this belief in my head that I wasn't the only one that made the mistake. But two, to reinforce to anyone listening that you got to make sure that you do your paperwork.
Right.
As big of a pain as it is, right?
Yeah. I don't know. I guess I haven't found that doing that kind of stuff like invoicing isn't.
Sure.
As of now, it's not a big deal for me. I mean, I finish a job and generally I get paid when the job's done.
Oh, nice.
Because I'll send out a bid and they'll decide they want to go with me or
sure.
if there's, somebody else they want to check into. But generally that's how it's done in my industry. We send out bids for jobs and
sure.
what we think it's going to take and you do the work and then you get paid when you're done. So
nice. It almost sounds too easy, right?
Yeah. I feel like you don't have to worry about, when you're done going back and doing the invoice.
Sure.
I mean, there are cases, some people do want to do jobs by the hour, but majority of the work is done by bidding and that's what your job gets paid for.
Gotcha. All right. So the name of our radio program is Authentic Business Adventures. So we would like to hear some adventures that you've had in regards to working with your business, whether it's working with a client or maybe an experience that you had, maybe when no one was around, working with a bobcat or something like that. What have been some interesting stories you've had with your business?
Recently, actually, I was out on a job and I was moving some stone to, build a retaining wall. Mm-hmm. And I went to turn to go down a hill and popped the hydraulic line in the bobcat. So I started puking oil all over. And
oh, no. all over this person's lawn? Or
it was actually on the road, so it was better it was there than on a lawn where you kill the grass. And But so I had to get out, and shut it off and shovel some dirt into a canal just to contain it.
Sure.
And then go get kitty litter. And
right.
So it was exciting to...
Right. So then you got this bobcat. It's got its popped hose, but you still have to keep moving the rock, right?
Right.
So then do you fix the hose or do you call in someone or how does that work?
I tried. I mean, with my mechanical background, I thought I could do it.
Sure.
I brought in another bobcat that was working.
Okay.
And tried to lift the arms because it was under the cab. I had to flip the cab forward in order to get under there to replace the hose, but I couldn't get it high enough for safety to lock in. And
oh, no. Okay.
So there was a dealer just down the road. I called them, had them come pick it up and take care of it for me.
Okay.
So
all right.
It's, you got to do what you can when you can.
Sure.
Otherwise, if it's more cost effective to have somebody come in and, take care of it, do it that way.
Right. There's an opportunity cost for you taking care of something versus outsourcing, right?
Correct.
Just like there's an opportunity cost for your customer.
Correct.
To get you moving a rock instead of them moving a rock, right?
Yep.
Whether it's a desire opportunity or they could do something better with their time or maybe it would just be done better with you versus them.
Sure.
Whatever.
Sure.
So in the end, the job got done, the bobcat got fixed, and presumably you didn't make as much money off that job because it cost you a little bit. But
no, but that's part of owning a business. You're going to run into hurdles that you got to figure out how to, if you're going to do it, fix it.
Yep.
Or if you're going to have somebody come in, take it and do it.
Sure.
I guess at that point you got to figure out what's going to be more cost effective. What's your time is valuable.
Right.
So if you're not going to be doing it, that's fine. But then you'll be making calls and find another work to make up for that.
Sure. And I imagine
little hiccup.
Something like this is an anomaly, right? You're not popping hoses every day.
No. I mean, generally I will get into the habit of checking them over once a year, make sure nothing's dry rotted or rubbing on something. In order for this to happen again.
Sure.
I like to keep up on my equipment, make sure it's in top performing shape, and just that way I limit my downtime.
And I want to point out that's pretty awesome that you knew exactly what to do, right? You contain the fluid, you get it all absorbed and out of the way, instead of some people would just lock up and stare at it and say, oh my gosh, and call somebody to help them while it's still leaking and puking this hydraulic fluid everywhere, right?
Right.
You knew exactly what to do, took care of business as best you could, right?
Correct.
So that's incredible. That's a driven business owner where not everybody would do that, right?
Right.
There's some employees that may not know how to do that.
Right.
Right. If there would have been you on a different job, them on this job, let's say, and they pop a hose and maybe they don't even realize, like, they don't know it's a hose or depending upon their intellect level in regards to this, right? Not
Sure.
everybody knows what hydraulics are.
Right.
So it's interesting. You knew what to do, take care of business, move along, solve the problem.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That's awesome. But you did mention something a little while back in regards to cold calling. And I know that's a huge thing in regards to marketing that business owners everywhere want to know about, right? Everybody wants to know the secret to cold calling. So it
Right.
sounds like you do quite a bit of it.
I do.
So would you like to just let's explore that a little bit, because this is fascinating to me. What is the easiest thing for you to do to get started calling? Because sometimes that's the hardest part, right?
Well, you got to find out who your customers are first.
Okay.
You know, who's going to buy your product, and
Sure.
who's going to buy your product, basically. You know.
Okay. So you put together a list or a spreadsheet, something like that?
Yeah, I'd figure out who I could possibly subcontract for, or
Okay.
who are people in home development or
Sure.
existing homes, that
Okay.
need jobs done.
Sure.
Just call around and be persistent.
All
That's
right.
my one key piece of advice, is just you got to continue to call people. They're going to say no, but that's fine.
Sure.
Call again.
Okay. All right.
I've found over persistence, I've gotten jobs. People, after you call for a while, they'll see your confidence in your
Sure.
abilities to do what you do.
So you call up some random, let's just say Joe Bob's Construction, right?
Right.
You see a sign for Joe Bob. He's got some development going on. And you're like, Joe Bob can totally use my services.
Correct.
So you look up Joe Bob's number and you decide, hey, man, Tuesday mornings, I'm going to give all these people a call. Joe Bob's on there. So you dial up Joe Bob and just walk us through what happens then.
Either I get voicemail,
Okay.
and I'll leave a message,
Okay.
or I'll get, their assistant.
Okay.
And most of the time, they'll either want you to email information about your company, which
Sure.
can be good,
Mm-hmm.
or, they'll just say, I'll take your name and number and give it to them.
Okay.
And most of the time I'll ask, well, can I get their voicemail, so I can leave a message?
Sure.
And, 50% of the time they'll say yes, and 50% of the time they'll say no. I'll just take your name and number, and
All right.
I'll give it to them.
Okay.
And that's fine. You just, you do that, and then maybe a couple days later, give a call again.
Okay.
Till they start, knowing who you are and
Sure.
what you do. And
All right.
like I said, as time goes on, people will know you.
Sure.
And just things will start to happen. It's
All right.
pretty amazing.
Nice. So as long as you keep banging on doors or ringing phones kind of thing,
Right.
people be like, oh, is this just some fly-by-night person that hired some high school kid to make some calls? I said no, so then it's no longer a concern to me.
Mm-hmm.
But you call a few times, and even though they said no, you're still persistent, like, hey, man, look, I know that I'm good at what I do. I know that you can use my services. And I feel like we are both doing a disservice to each other for you not saying yes to me, or at least having a conversation.
Correct.
Is that safe to say?
Yes.
All right. So, but I imagine I know, because even I experience this sometimes too. Sometimes it's tough to pick up the phone.
It is.
You got this like, oh, I got to pick up the phone for the next hour. I'm going to hear 50 no's.
Right.
Right? That can be just anytime you hear a no, right? Even if you ask for a certain type of salad dressing at a restaurant, you're like, oh, they said no, come on. Like, it can be a challenge to get over that hurdle of knowing that you're going to hear a bunch of no's.
Right.
So tell me how you get over that.
You just got to keep going. I know it's a hard thing to hear. I heard it a lot in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
But you got to build confidence in yourself, so that
Right?
just let people know you're not going to waste their time.
Sure.
Get straight to the point when you're giving them a call.
All right.
Let them know who you are,
Mm-hmm.
what you're calling about,
Sure.
and then they'll either need your services or they won't at that time.
Okay.
And then just if they take your number, great, and if you hear from them, awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, give them a call again. If you don't, you just got to be continuously calling.
Sure. Now, I imagine that you've come across people where you know that you can help them, right? And
Correct.
maybe it's not necessarily you specifically, but you know that they need someone that knows how to work a bobcat with a bobcat to help them,
Right.
right? You know this for a fact.
Yep.
And you're probably the only person with a bobcat calling them, presumably, right?
Yep.
It's not like your credit card processor or something like that. No
No.
offense to Mason. Right? Where they get 50 phone calls a day asking about this or Yellow Pages or whatever it is people call about now, right?
Right.
So you're the dude with a bobcat, calling them up that can work a bobcat. They need this, yet they are probably, I imagine some people that are just afraid to admit that,
Yeah.
or afraid to say yes to someone that just called them out of the blue.
Right. it's like any situation. You have to build trust with somebody.
Okay.
They have to feel comfortable, with you
Sure.
doing the work for them.
Okay.
And, there is going to be a trial period, I'm sure, with the first couple jobs.
Sure.
If they say yes.
Okay. And what's the quickest way for you to build trust over the phone with them so that they'll give you a try?
Let them know you're not going to waste their time and
okay.
just, get to the point is basically what I've found.
Gotcha.
Really helps is
okay.
If you let them know who your company is, what you're calling about.
Mm-hmm.
And
okay. Can you walk us through, can we just do a pretend one here?
Sure.
Because I get so many questions about this that I want to, instead of just being theory, I want to see some practice here. Is that cool?
Yeah.
I think the listeners would like that too. How do you think they would?
Definitely.
Okay. So I'm going to be, I'm Joe Bob, the construction company guy, and I want you to call me, okay?
Okay.
All right. So just ring me up.
Ring, ring.
Hello.
Hi, this is Bill with Bill's Earth Services. I am calling in regards to doing subcontract work for you guys. I do earthwork. We do bobcat work, excavation, some demolition.
All right. What makes you think that we need you?
Well, I mean, you're a builder, construction worker.
Sure.
People always need help.
All right. How do I know that you're not going to slack off and not show up like the last 3 guys I hired?
I have my own business, and I'm dedicated to getting the job done right the first time.
All right, I tell you what, I got this pain in the rear job that I got coming up. It's the worst one you could possibly handle. I got it coming up in 2 days. Can you help me with this one?
Yes, let's do it.
All right, nice. All right, I like that. There's confidence there, so that's good. I appreciate that. So tell me, what other challenges have come up in your business?
So far, it's been actually pretty smooth. Just, I guess learning little leaks in there, like what your pricing is supposed to be and
sure.
how you're supposed to price stuff to actually make money.
Sure. There's that. I charge $1 for everything, right? It's so easy to sell. I'm cheapest in the world, right?
Yeah.
I teach a business planning course, and I'm going through the financials with them now.
Okay.
And we're going through how to price stuff, right?
Yeah.
And it's tough, right? Because you could argue part science and part art. Because in the end, a lot of times the value is in the price itself.
It is.
And I tell the story of people, like if I were to propose to my girlfriend, and I said, hey, here's a beautiful ring, and it's in some fancy box, it's from some fancy jewelry store, which I don't know what a fancy jewelry store company is, but let's just imagine that I know what that is. And I'm smart enough to buy the box off eBay or something like that. Right?
Sure.
And I stick the ring in there, but I got the ring from a swap meet or from a pawn shop.
Okay.
Right? So beautiful ring, gorgeous ring, and as far as I know, it's the biggest rock that I've ever seen on that ring of the diamond variety. I'm not really sure what jewelry looks like. That's good because that's not my realm, but let's just pretend it's awesome, right? I was told it's awesome. Yeah. It's awesome. Stick it in this fancy box and give it to my girlfriend, right?
Okay.
And I'm like, hey, pretty woman, would you marry me? And she's like, oh, yes, it's fascinating. Yes, I love it. Look at this beautiful ring and this beautiful box. So I assume that you got it from where this beautiful box is from, right? Now, let's take it a year down the road.
Uh-huh.
And she's, for whatever reason, cleaning the house, and she's digging through a drawer, like the junk drawer, and she sees a receipt from the pawn shop for this ring. Right? She showed this ring off to her friends, to her parents, to her family. Look at this ring, look at this ring, look at this ring. He got it from this fancy jewelry store place. And now she sees this receipt from a pawn shop and learns that even though the perceived value of this ring is crazy high, I got some super deal for a couple $100. I bought this ring right from this pawn shop. So now instantly, what is the value of that ring in her mind?
Not a whole lot.
It's dropped, right?
Yeah,
insanely. And worse so, arguably, what is the value of me in her mind, right?
Right. Yeah, it's
this
dropped.
Cheap guy, what is he doing, right?
Yeah.
And realistically, let's just say this ring was originally from fancy jewelry store, but I didn't buy it from fancy jewelry store. It just went through some channels, right? Somebody got left at the altar or whatever, and ended up at the pawn shop. And so I saved some money. I'm a frugal dude.
Right.
Right? I saved some money, and she's still frustrated. So she would have been, let's just say that she found a receipt, and it was not a pawn shop receipt. She found a receipt for the ring, and it was twice the price that she thought it was.
Oh.
Right? Now what does that do?
Definitely boosts her.
It boosts the value of the ring in her mind, right?
Yeah.
And what does that do for me in her mind?
It makes you look better.
All because I spent some more money. I spent stupid money on a ring, so now I'm all of a sudden more valuable to her. That's just insane to me, right?
Yeah.
But then you can work that in your own pricing.
Right.
as long as you're not trying to be the cheapest.
No.
You can be generally speaking the best, and a lot of it is perceived value.
Right.
It's so interesting to me. Like, that's where the art comes in, right?
Yeah.
It's perceived value. So I find it's fascinating just dealing with other people, how they're gonna price out their massage or their bobcat work or even the trinkets that you get online, right?
Correct.
A lot of the stuff has become somewhat commoditized, but if you can find a way against becoming commoditized, right?
Yeah.
Which for some things is challenging, right?
Very.
Because I imagine for you, there's going to be people that are calling, 3 or 4 dirt moving places, right?
Yeah. I have people, that just want an estimate because they do tell me up front that they're, contacting other people to get estimates. And I know everybody's looking, for the cheapest price.
Right.
But
do you know that for sure, though?
I do, because a lot of people say it.
Okay.
And I don't want to, knock any other companies or anything, but in my opinion, the cheapest isn't always the best.
It's rarely the best.
Correct.
I always say service, quality, and price, right? Pick 2.
Yep. Yeah.
So if you're the best service, best quality, it's going to be rare, or you shouldn't be the best price.
No.
In regards to the lowest price, right?
Definitely.
So, yeah, I just take it at that. We've all driven on highways that were probably given to the lowest bidder, and they're terrible, right? Presumably, it was the lowest bidder, and they have to be done again and again and again,
right?
Because quality wasn't that great.
I mean, I feel everybody's looking for something free, and that's fine.
Sure.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Yep.
So I feel like, I give free estimates, and my time is worth something, but if it's going to get me the job, then I'll take an hour or whatever it takes to do that estimate, and I'll send it to them for free.
Sure.
So I guess I was trying to figure out.
So you're trying to figure out how do you charge for what you do.
Right.
Which can be a challenge, right?
Yep.
And I imagine, I'm just trying to think me, right? Like I got a house, and I imagine at some point there's going to be some landscaping work, or you're going to move some dirt for some reason.
Yeah.
I wouldn't know what the value is, right? Like I would know, I would have something to compare it to, right? Which is like any education, right? You compare it to what you know.
Yeah.
And so I think, well, okay, if I were to do this myself, this is how much it would cost me.
Right.
I'd probably have to rent some equipment. I'd probably end up popping a gas line or something like that. So I imagine there's an expense there. I'd have to give up a weekend or a week or take time off of work or whatever, the opportunity cost there.
Yeah.
And then I'd have to deal with my wife nagging at me that I'm doing it wrong, right? Which, I mean, in her defense, I probably would be doing it wrong because I wouldn't know, right? This is my first one. I'm just going to learn.
Sure.
And then you have to deal with like, well, that's taking time away from kid. That's taking time away from hobbies. That's taking time away from other stuff, right?
Definitely.
And then when all's said and done, maybe I find that most of my house projects get about 80, 90% done. And then that other 10, 20% just doesn't happen. I'll give you an example here without going on a crazy side tangent.
Sure.
I put up a ceiling fan, right? Replaced the ceiling fan that was in there when we bought the house. So I put this other ceiling fan, but the new ceiling fan, the base was a little bit smaller than the old ceiling fan. Which means that we had paint happened at some point on that ceiling previous to us putting this new ceiling fan in. Which means that I got this circle that goes for about 2 inches around the diameter of the new base.
Wow.
So we got, white ceiling everywhere except for this 2-inch circle around the fan base that's a different white. It's super obvious that just like, there was a different fan here. And so there's this trim ring, just a little tiny trim ring that would cover up the screws. Right. And I'm like, I'm going to leave that down because someday, like, I'll paint that. I'll paint the ceiling, right? Yeah. I'm going to paint that little section of ceiling. And it doesn't happen. That thing sat there for, I bet the better part of 5 or 6 years. With the ring just hanging there, and then those 2 inches around the fan just not painted. And it wasn't because I don't know how to paint. It wasn't because, we even had the bucket of paint in the basement. Okay. It was labeled.
Okay.
In fact, we did paint it. It took me the better part of 10 minutes to do. But I didn't do it because I went through all this fanfare putting up the ceiling fan. I'm like, I'll get to that later. Right? So it was interesting. After I finally did it 5 or 6 years later, I'm like, that's all it took. Then I go a step further. That paint had to dry. Right. So then how long do you think it took me to put that ring up? All I had to do was get a ladder and snap up the ring. That's it. Right. It took me another year. Another year. Where if I would have just called up some electrician and presumed that they answered the phone and said, like, hey, man, just swap out the ceiling fan.
Yeah.
Presumably they would have gone through the work or hired a painter, done whatever it is that they need to do. So in a couple days, ceiling fans up, installed, pretty, life goes on, right?
Correct.
But not me. Nope. I am like arguably most homeowners, where when I do a project on my own, it is very rare that I ever get 100% done.
Mm-hmm.
Very rare. So now when somebody hires you, they have to look into that, like, okay, do I want it 90% done, or should I just hire a professional to actually get it completely done, right?
Right. I mean, I guess if there's stuff like that to do, I kind of look at, what it would take for me to do it.
Sure.
And what it would be for somebody else to do it.
Sure.
And I mean, I found that having somebody else to do it is a lot cheaper.
Sure. Right. And you being someone else, right?
Well, it depends on the project.
Okay.
If there was something outside of earthwork that I wanted done around my place.
Gotcha. Okay.
If it were, whatever.
All right.
But.
So let me ask you, we got to get going here and button up this quick. I want to ask you one question, because I know that everybody that has ever been a young child is curious.
Sure.
Tell me how much fun it is to drive a Bobcat.
Oh, it's a blast.
All right.
Every day I get in, I have a big grin on my face.
All right. That is awesome.
Go dig a hole.
That is incredible. That is incredible. You get to work in the place that's like everybody's sandbox, right?
Definitely. It's a big sandbox, actually.
That's awesome. All right. Well, I appreciate you guys listening. This is Authentic Business Adventures. My name is... You have found Authentic Business Adventures, the business program that brings you the struggles, stories, and triumphant successes of business owners across the land. We are coming to you from the Sun Prairie Community Radio Studios, underwritten by Bank of Sun Prairie. My name is James Kateman, business coach and author of the Bold Business Book, along with my host, Mason Tikkanen, who happens to be out today. Today we are welcoming/preparing to grill Bill Atkinson of Bill's Earth Services. Bill, how you doing today?
Fabulous. And yourself?
I'm doing tip-top here. So we are joining you guys at another grizzly cold winter day in lovely Wisconsin. So, Bill, what's your company name?
Bill's Earth Services.
Bill's Earth Services. Okay, Bill. So that's kind of vague, right? Because Earth Services, that could be all kinds of stuff. So tell me what you do there.
So we do landscape, hardscape, and excavation. And there's just other areas we're thinking about for the future.
Okay.
So that's the reason for the vague name.
That's awesome. Yeah, vague is not necessarily bad.
Definitely not.
Vague is more, you got room for growth there in that regard.